All right, class. Today we are ready to jump into uh, the week 9 section for microeconomics. In addition to what we're going over today in class, I wanted to ensure that this is our last week, so we need to make sure that you have everything completed. I'm sending emails uh, to you all based on any outstanding assignments. Also sending um, the final exam study guide and for review. The exam will be released this week, and any makeup assignments need to also be submitted this week. Those of you who have projects, presentations that still submit, please make sure that's done as well. And that will all be shared in the email I'm sending out with this link to the presentation. So this week's lecture is going to be on public goods, common resources, and externalities. This will talk about how to classify goods, public goods, common resources, negative and positive externalities. And all this, of course, can be found in your textbook in the final chapters 10 and 11. And make sure you know and understand the key terms. We'll also have a video link embedded within this presentation and class lecture, as we always do, to further summarize the topics that we're going over for the week. So a couple of common questions to coincide with this class and lecture are: what are public goods? What are common resources? And the ability to give examples of each. What do markets generally fail to provide to the effective amounts of these goods? And how might government improve market outcomes in the case of public goods or common resources? So to jump right in, please know that we do, as society, consume many goods without paying. Some of these are parks, national defense, clean air, and water. When goods have no prices, the market forces that naturally and normally allocate these resources are absent. The private market may fail to provide the socially efficient quantity of such goods, and sometimes the government can use this to improve market outcomes. So different kinds of goods. Excludability for property of a good whereby a person can be prevented from using it. This excludes such manufactured goods such as rice burgers and Wi-Fi access as excludable. Not excludable radio signals, national defense, etc., as previously noted. Robbery and consumption, property of a good whereby one person uses diminishes other people's use. So this goes back to, again, rice burgers, and then not rival would be an MP3 file of a music signal. The example here is David Tao's latest signal as an example. Private goods can be seen as excludable and rival in consumption, again, such as food. Public goods are not excludable and do not rival in consumption, such as national defense, and the other examples given based on taxes and so forth. Common resources rival in consumption and not excludable, such as fish in the ocean. And club goods are excludable and do not rival in consumption, such as cable TV and those types of resources. A road is which of four kinds of goods, and so that will fall back into the category of public goods, as noted here as an example. The answer also depends on whether the road is congested or not, and whether it's a toll road or not. Consider the different cases and see where that will fall as far as public goods or private goods. That example is in the text, and there are other examples in your textbook that can give you more insight as to how a road or other public goods and the consumption of each can be utilized. So different kinds of goods. You do, again, have public goods and common resources. Externalities arise because something of value has no price attached to it. Private decisions about consumption and production can lead to inefficient outcome. Public policy can also potentially raise economic well-being. Free rider is a person who receives the benefit of a good but avoids paying for it. The free rider problem is basically these three areas where public goods are not excludable, so people have an incentive to be free riders. It prevents the private market from supplying the goods, and of course, market failure. The market failure is a free rider problem based on the lack of economy and capital that can be produced So public goods. Government can remedy the free rider problem if total benefits of a public good exceed its cost. That provides the public good. The public good is provided more holistically. It's paid for with tax revenue. And again, because everyone pays taxes, or definitely should, without penalty. And it makes everyone better off. The problem is measuring the benefit, as it's usually difficult to do so based on the public goods. Difficult to assess the overall benefit of that. So based on this, there's a cost-benefit analysis, whereas you can compare the cost and benefits to society of providing a public good. It doesn't have any price signals to observe. The government findings are rough approximations at best, and the cost-benefit analyses are also can be imprecise. So the efficient provision of public goods is more difficult than that of private goods. So public goods, government can remedy the free rider problem if the total benefits of a public good exceed its cost. It's provided to the public. You pay for it with tax revenue, therefore making it better off for everyone. And again, measuring it is pretty difficult, and that's similar to the previous slide. Cost-benefit analysis, compare the costs and benefits to society by providing a public good. It doesn't have any price signals to observe. The government findings are rough approximations. That's a duplicate. I went through that slide already. So some important public goods are national defense. National defense is very expensive to the public good. The U.S. cost for this national defense is $740 billion, and that's in the United States 7 years ago. And that's basic research is also a public good. General knowledge, subsidized by government, and the public sector fails to pay for the right amount and right kinds of public goods are critical issues of importance. Some important public goods are the anti-poverty program financed with taxes, these being the welfare system and temporary assistance for needy families, TAFN is an acronym for that. This provides a small income for poor families. Food stamps and supplemental nutrition programs, or SNAP, as an acronym. And these subsidize the purchase of food for those with low incomes, and government housing programs, which make shelter more affordable. So you have food and shelter, which are basic needs of our society that are public goods. Common resources. Common resources are not excludable, therefore cannot prevent free riders from using. There's little incentive for firms to provide these, and there is a role in government for these common resources. Seeing that these common resources are provided, common resources rival in consumption, so each one's common resource usually reduces others' ability to see it, and that role of government. And a part of this is ensuring that these common resources are not overused, or monitoring the consumption. The tragedy of the common resources is a parable that shows why the common resources are used more than they're desirable. In the textbook, it'll talk about a medieval town where sheep graze on common land, and the population grows, the number of sheep grows, therefore the amount of land is fixed, and the grass begins to disappear from overgrazing. So there are some additional examples shared in the textbook that can talk about the common resources and how, from a national standpoint, and more theory and relevance as to how that looks. So we'll again look at a video that can break this down a little bit further, and we will we'll examine this this resource that will coincide with some of what we're talking about, and give you further examples and credence for what we're talking about today.
Beaches, traffic lights, lighthouses, the military defense are all goods provided by the government and not through the market mechanism themselves, where we directly pay for them. Well, the simple reason is that they are examples of public goods. Pure public goods have got two fundamental characteristics. They are non-excludable and they are non-rival. Very weird, very unique characteristics that apply to pure public goods here, and very much the opposite of what the characteristics of a private good are. What is non-excludability? Well, non-excludability means that no price can be charged for a public good. that excludes others that haven't paid. And there are two reasons why maybe no price can be charged for a public good. One is that the benefits of consuming the good cannot be confined just to the individual who's paid for it. That's a very weird characteristic, because normally, when we go to a shop, let's say we buy a chocolate bar, if we consume that chocolate bar, only we get the benefit, not other people around us who haven't paid. Not the case for a public good. Even if someone pays, those people around might be able to benefit in exactly the same way without having paid for it. Very strange. But also, maybe no price can be charged because there might not be a cost-efficient way of pricing. Maybe the way of pricing is too expensive. It's not maybe an efficient way of pricing. But public goods are also non-rival, and that means that the quantity available of the good does not diminish upon consumption. Again, that's really weird. Go back to my chocolate bar example. If we consume a chocolate bar, there's one less available for everybody else, right? Not the case for a public good. If somebody consumes it, the quantity available remains exactly the same for everybody else that wants to consume it. Very strange and unique characteristics here. And if we apply it to some of these examples, you'll see how it holds. So take street lights as an example. No price can be charged because as soon as someone pays, the benefits cannot be confined just to that person. Everybody else around can also enjoy the street light and consume it. Also, you can argue maybe there is no cost-effective way to price. There are also non-rival street lights because when they're consumed, the quantity available does not diminish for everybody else. So just because you might have paid for a street light, it turns on, and you stop using it, it doesn't just switch off automatically. It stays on for everybody else. The quantity available does not diminish upon consumption. You can argue the same thing for beaches. Take beaches as an example here. I'd say it's not excludable because of number 2 here. There is no cost-efficient way to price. In theory, there is a way. Private producers could build walls, right, and exclude people from accessing the beach and then have booths, so people have to pay to enter a beach. But that's not cost-effective at all. It's a very expensive thing to do for a private producer. And also, beaches are non-rival, where the quantity of the beach doesn't diminish upon consumption. Beaches are massive, right? So just because one person enters a beach, it doesn't reduce the amount available to others. So those characteristics apply. You can do it for all of these different examples of public goods here. The issue is that because of these two characteristics, we get to the free rider problem, where individuals have the incentive not to contribute anything at all to the provision of the public good because they'll wait for others to contribute and then free ride off their contributions. And they know they can do that because the benefits can't be confined just to the person that's paid, so they themselves can benefit without paying. They also know that if that person does pay and they consume, the same amount will be available for them to consume as well. So the incentive is for individuals not to pay for public goods themselves, but to wait for others to pay and to free ride off their contributions. Now the big problem there is that if everybody acts that way, no one's going to pay towards the provision of public goods at all. There will be no contributions, and therefore there is no private motive to supply them. Why would a private firm supply them if no one's going to pay, and therefore there is no chance of making profit here? So if no private firm is going to supply, there is going to be absolutely none supplied in the free market, zero supplied in the free market. The end result, there'll be a missing market, complete market failure, the worst kind of market failure, because clearly there is huge demand for all of these things, massive demand, very socially desirable goods here. But if there is going to be no supply, you've got the worst kind of market failure, complete market failure and a missing market. But it's important, guys, that we don't just stop there. We need to be thinking a bit deeper, because if we agree with that conclusion, it means for all of these goods, the only solution is for governments to provide them using tax revenue. But if we can maybe evaluate, we can maybe find unique ways of agreeing for private provision. And one way of evaluating is by looking at the notion of a quasi-public good. A quasi-public good is a public good that sometimes shows the pure characteristics of a public good, so both characteristics, but sometimes will show the characteristics of a private good, i.e. it can be excludable or it can be rival. And two good examples are roads and beaches, and if we agree on that, then maybe we can find a way for private provision somehow. So take roads. Can roads be excludable? Absolutely they can, through toll roads. Now, toll roads might not be the most efficient way of pricing, but it certainly can be done. And with technology improving in the world, it doesn't have to be a physical toll booth. It could be like a camera that scans a license plate and takes money away